so many of them that Basilone's men said it looked like the jungle itself was coming to eat them. And while that is horrifying, you have to remember that John and his men have 2 heavy machine guns with overlapping fields of fire and the high ground. It's going to take a literal army to uproot John and his men. John and his men start mowing down wave after wave of Japanese infantry, and they just keep coming because they are under the command of General Hayotake, and this man is willing to die.
It's an honor charge. Like, it's disgusting. It's a disgusting mentality.
Not only are John and his men metaphorically...
Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be checking out 15 Marines versus 3,000, the unstoppable John Basilone, uploaded by the Fat Electrician guys. Yes, now I will say right off the bat, I do actually know who John Basilone is. During my time in the reserves, I was actually largely a C9 gunner, and my favorite weapon system was actually the C6, that being essentially a saw and essentially an M240 for those of you in America. Basically an identical weapon system, just with a few bits and baubles changed here and there. But with any without any further delay on that, I do actually know who he is. Guy's a complete badass, Medal of Honor recipient in America, and I believe he also got the Navy Cross, unfortunately posthumously. He got his Medal of Honor, I believe, during Guadalcanal, and then if I'm not mistaken, they transferred him to the US, and largely due to his own accord, wanted to return to combat, didn't feel like he had done his bit yet, returned to combat, and then unfortunately was killed during the attack on Iwo Jima, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, basically the stipulations around him getting that Medal of Honor were fucking insane. Essentially, it was him and 15 other men manning a dug-in fighting position, and essentially they got completely overrun. It was down to John and one other guy at one point after 2 days of fighting, John making multiple ammo runs and being the machine gunner of that firing line. I believe there was 2 machine guns on that firing line, but one of them was eventually injured or killed, one of the gunners. So he was eventually manning both, maintaining both machine guns, and I think the official citation is that he got 37 confirmed kills. That being said, he was the machine gunner, and in front of that firing position was just fucking bodies. Like, I mean, insane amounts of carnage, for lack of a better word. And yeah, he basically, it's widely regarded that from the survivors there that he was a one-man army, and he held the line virtually by himself at one point. So yeah, definitely deserves it. I'm going to be interested to learn the context surrounding it. It's one of those stories that I feel like it's hard to do justice on, and that, like, you know, it sounds unbelievable almost. You know, it's one of those stories that fucking crazy. Like, only the survivors that could fucking see it can fathom and tell that it's true, you know, and notify anyone, because otherwise it's like, holy shit, how does one man do all this? But no, we're gonna see. But I know who he is. You know, he's widely regarded as one of the best machine gunners, I believe, in the world, or at least largely one of the most efficient, let's call it. So without any further delay, guys, let's get into this video. This is a long intro, sorry about that, guys. But yeah, without any further delay, we're gonna like up here. Captions are on, quality 1440p sick, we're full screen. Big thank you to all of our members. Leave a like before we get started, subscribe if you enjoy the content. Without any further delay, guys, let's get right into it.
I'm just going to level with you. I've been making YouTube videos for about 3 years now, and during that time, I've gotten recommendations for hundreds of thousands of different topics to do videos on. Some of them I've done, some of them I haven't gotten around to yet, some of them I'll never do because they don't interest me, and then there's another category of topics that I've actively avoided because, to be honest with you, they intimidate me because the stories are that incredible, and I'm worried that I'm not going to do them justice. This is one of those.
Yeah.
Today we're talking about one of the greatest Marines of all time, an undefeated boxer with a 100% knockout rate, and probably the greatest machine gunner to ever live, John Basilone. He is easily one of the most recognized...
That's actually, I had no idea. I had no idea at all. Notice the wacko fucking medals up there. I was a kickboxer myself. I had no idea. That was cool.
Greatest machine gunner to ever live, John Basilone. He is easily one of the most recognizable and renowned warriors in American military history, and for good reason. He has received the Medal of Honor and the Navy Cross, and the only reason he got the Navy Cross is because they quit letting people get the Medal of Honor twice. And we're going to get this incredible story right after a word from our sponsor.
Actually, I think we heard that before.
Yeah, babe, what's up?
Pretty sure we did, actually.
I need a boombox.
Okay, I can go get you one.
Oh, the boombox ad?
All right, I'll go get it now. Love you.
We've seen these before. Yeah, we've seen this before.
1 hour later.
Where's that boombox that I asked for?
Oh, it's right here. I got it for you.
Whew.
What is this?
Whips out a piece.
Boombox.
No, I wanted something to play music with.
Oh, that.
And play music with that.
Yeah, I got this.
Just fine.
Okay, we'll go to the store and get me a boombox so I can listen to music.
Can I keep this one still?
I don't care.
This video is brought to you by Delete Me. Okay, super
I wish,
simple
guys.
business
Unfortunately,
model. You
Canadian.
give them money, they turn around and they make sure that online data brokers are not selling your personal information online. Okay, here's the deal. Pretty much anytime you use a free service on the internet and you click that little box that says, I agree to the terms and conditions, you've basically just agreed to allow them to harvest as much of your personal information as humanly possible. They
Absolutely.
then turn around and sell that to online data brokers, and that's how they can afford to offer you a free service. But when you have Delete Me, they go and they monitor all of these online data brokers for your personal information, and then if they find it, they submit all the opt-out forms on your behalf, so they have to take down and stop selling that information.
I love the
So
Fat
when you buy
Electrician's
Delete Me,
ads,
you're not
man.
actually buying
Not gonna
anything.
lie.
You're just buying your way out of all the negative consequences of all the free shit that you've already gotten. And because
Amazing.
they continue to monitor those data brokers, you're buying yourself out of all the future negative consequences of all the free shit that you haven't even gotten yet. So if you want to give Delete Me a try, there's going to be a link and a discount code down below. Let's get back to the video.
And I have to say too, I believe this is an older video of his. Actually, let me just check real quick. Yeah, a year ago now, but I know he still has this code. I know Delete Me still does partnerships with them. I believe that code is still valid. So go, if you plan on using Delete Me, use that code, 20% off. Big discount, guys. Might as well use it, take advantage of it. And I have to say, I've heard nothing but good things about that service as well. Yeah, go give it a try if you plan on using Delete Me, guys.
So if you want to give Delete Me a try, there's going to be a link
Code
and a discount
Electrician.
code down below. Let's get back to the video.
Chapter 1, John. I also know nothing
John
about his
Basilone
early
was born
life.
on November 4th, 1916 in Buffalo, New York, and spent his entire childhood
York,
growing
okay.
up in Raritan, New Jersey. He was the
Oh,
sixth
shit.
of 10 children with 2 older brothers, and both of his parents were first-generation immigrants that had just moved here from Italy. And like pretty much
Okay.
all World War II vets that we've ever talked about, he grew up in poverty during the Great Depression. Despite that, his father truly believed that America was the greatest place on earth. It was the land of opportunity, and he instilled that in all of his kids. Growing up with
That's
2 older
good.
brothers in New Jersey, John got really tough really quick as a kid. He was extremely stubborn. He rode that line between bravery and stupidity with everything he did, and he was not particularly good at school. He could never pay attention to
Well, I mean, it doesn't sound like his dad was a fucking, like, you know, a drunk, at least, you know, abhorrently, you know, so that's good, because that's also a common theme is like, oh yeah, like dad just drank a lot, left, and then, like, you know, this guy has to grow up and eventually, like, you know, he becomes responsible that way. But no, it's good to see that, you know, it looks like his family was actually at least there, you know, and he had, you know, his mom and his dad, and his dad actually seemed to instill some good values. That's amazing. I like that. Okay, good shit.
bravery
We're
and stupidity
different off the
with
bat.
everything he did, and he was not particularly good at school. He could never pay attention in the classroom, but he excelled at anything athletic, and he never shied away from a fight. When he was 7 years old,
Absolutely.
he famously decided that he was going to make a 1,000-pound bull that had nearly killed 3 grown men previously.
What the
his
fuck?
pet.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton.
bull,
Let's see if it pays
oh.
off for him.
So 7-year-old John, with zero fear in his body, hops in this pen with this bull and goes to pet it. The bull charges him. He dodges it. The bull charges him again. He dodges it again. And finally, the bull just kind of squares up with him. And John slowly walks up to this bull. And right as he's about to place his hand on the bull's head, right between his horns, the bull rears down and launches John 20 feet through the air, and he lands flat on his back.
Jesus.
Luckily, John makes it out of the pen okay. Needless to say, that bull did not become his pet, but it goes to show that he is either gifted with an extreme amount of bravery or stupidity, and only time is going to tell which one it is. Now, around
Right.
this same point in his childhood, John and his brothers end up going to the local movie theater, and they watch a movie about a boxer. And this movie inspires John and his 2 older brothers to all want to become boxers, but the problem is there's no boxing gym in Raritan. He can't afford any boxing equipment, so the 3 brothers just start trying to mimic the training from the movie. They all start jumping.
And that's, again, that's where some of the greatest boxers, actually, I was going to say, some of the greatest boxers come from that way. Boxing is one of those sports that, through your own body weight, and kickboxing, you know, pretty much all martial arts in general, through your own body weight, really no equipment for the most part, right? As long as you can eventually get yourself maybe a pair of hand wraps and gloves, you know what I'm saying? Maybe a mouth guard don't hurt, you know, if you plan on doing some sparring. But like, otherwise, yeah, you don't really need much equipment to actually get going and to start training yourself, right? So it's, you know, it's a great sport, and I have to give credence to specifically boxers as well, right? Boxing is rough, you know, just boxing. A lot of people think, oh, like, MMA is harder. No, MMA is a lot easier, man. Boxing's the fucking roughest sport there is, because it's just striking for fucking 12 rounds, man. It is pure just striking until a KO, or until, you know, a technical knockout, right? It's fucking hard shit versus, you know, other times, you know, if you can hit the legs, you can get a TKO via the legs. You know, it's not just like body and fucking headshots and shit, you know, it's, You know, I have great respect for boxers,
boxing
man.
equipment, so the three brothers just start trying to mimic the training from the
Boxers
movie.
and
They
Muay
all start
Thai.
jumping rope. The problem
Muay Thai
is
is
they
fucking
don't
brutal.
have jump ropes and they can't afford it, so they start jumping rope with a clothesline. They started chopping wood with an old rusty axe they found. They start doing focus mitt drills with their bare hands because they can't afford any equipment. And this goes on for the rest of his childhood. Academically, John struggles in the classroom, and at school, he's not very popular either. And it's not that he's dumb. He can do everything. He can read, he can write, he can do math. He just can't stand sitting there for 6 to 8 hours a day looking at a chalkboard and some teacher droning on. He would zone out, and then next thing he knows, the bell would ring and class would be over, and he didn't pay attention to any of it. Because of this, after he graduates from 8th grade, he informs his parents that he is not going to be attending high school, and he's going to go out and get a job and start contributing to the family. Because he's 14 at the time, there's not a whole lot of jobs that he can do, so he gets the first one he can get his hands on, and that is being a caddy at the local golf course. And at first,
it's just a crazy different time to me, though. Like, yeah, you could just easily go out and get a job without a high school education back then, and you could work your way up just through merit and fucking get a good job. And now it's like, fuck, you know, even to get a basic fucking position, a lot of the time you have to have fucking experience or a university degree for a lot of things, or a college degree. And it's like, holy fuck, for what? You know what I mean? It's just weird that that's the baseline, because a lot of these jobs do certainly not require it. That's the thing. It's like, it's just a stamp there to say, oh yeah, you contributed 2 years of your life and a lot of money for something that isn't even applicable to this job necessarily, right? It's weird shit to me. It's weird. I don't necessarily understand it.
So he gets the first one he can get his hands on, and that is being a caddy at the local golf course. And at first, John absolutely loves it. He's outside, he's moving around, he's earning money to help his family. All these rich businessmen are giving him these huge tips because he does such a great job.
That's a great, honestly,
clubs,
yeah.
He's hanging out at the golf course clubhouse with all these rich businessmen, and they
You're charismatic and likable. Great job.
Good at that, and he starts making money doing that too. And this goes on for years, and as John turns 16 and then eventually 17, it's getting to the point where he can go out and get a real job. And John absolutely hates the notion of it. He resents the fact that society is telling him he has to go out and get some monotonous 9-to-5 job that he just has to do every single day for the rest of his life. In his mind, it's going to be just like sitting in that classroom, zoned out, and John doesn't know what to do because that's not what he wants in life. Not knowing what to do, John goes to his church and he's praying about it. He's just sitting there.
I feel that, though.
He's thinking about what he wants to do for
I think
the
we
rest
all
of
do.
his life. While he's there, a Catholic priest by the name of Father Russo comes up and starts talking to John. You know, he's clearly troubled, wants to know if he can help, and John ends up asking Father Russo, that he's known pretty much his entire childhood, like, hey, Father, you know, you were an athletic guy, you were in college, you could have been a doctor, you could have been a professional athlete, you had the whole world at your fingertips. How did you decide that you wanted to become a priest? And Father Russo told him that he just felt a calling, that that's what he was supposed to do, so he did it, and he told John that if he listened, God would probably give him a calling too. So John takes that advice and he's trying to listen or look out for any sign that maybe God's going to give him. And then one day he has what he describes as a vision that he's supposed to become a warrior. And because of this, John joins the United States Army in 1934. Now the problem is John doesn't really know what he wants to do in the Army, but he knows that his calling is to be a warrior. So he wants to be the biggest, baddest, most untouchable warrior on the battlefield, which is obvious.
So that's another thing. I had no idea he joined the Army in 34. That's crazy to me. So he was in it for a while before America even got involved. He's probably trained up, already in kind of a position of leadership, more than likely, if I had to assume. You know, maybe not. I'm not sure. I'm not going to say yet. But just, yeah, crazy to me. I didn't know that.
So he wants to be the biggest, baddest, most untouchable warrior on the battlefield, which is obvious.
I thought he was drafted or something like that.
Best job I ever had.
The problem is that John thinks that being cooped up inside of a tank is going to be just like sitting inside that classroom, and he absolutely hates the notion. He wants to be outside, moving around, doing things that are physical, so he picks
How tall is he, I wonder?
thing on the battlefield, a machine gun. And this suits John for multiple reasons. One, he's kind of a bigger guy by the standards of the day, right? He's 5'9", but he's 185 pounds with almost no fat on him. And on top of that, he's been doing nothing but lugging around golf clubs for the past 4 years, giving him a ton of
he's a brick
stamina,
shit
which is
house.
good news because he's going to need it, because the machine gun back in 1934 was the Browning 1917, which was a fucking machine gun that required 7 quarts of water to cool the barrel down. Between the gun and the tripod,
Let's just go back and look at that bitch. Holy shit, dude. Yeah, that and like the old Vickers, right? Fucking crazy machine guns, big old water coolers on the end of them. Yeah, and they used those for a long ass time, right? And 30-06, you know, it was a mean machine gun, to be fair. Once you got it set up in position, this thing fucking spit, and it spit hard, man. Like 30-06 is not fucking around. That'll put anything down pretty much. Yeah, weighed 103 pounds. So typically you'd have like you know, obviously a number 1 and number 2, and then under decent circumstances, you'd have a number 3 for sighting purposes and whatnot. But, you know, number 1 obviously carries the gun, number 2 carries the tripod, and number 3, again, is sighting you in, calling out targets, watching your ass. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Gun that required 7 quarts of water to cool the barrel down. Between the gun and the tripod, the entire thing is 103 pounds, not including the ammunition. And John is absolutely obsessed with this gun. He knows absolutely everything about it. He knows where to place it on a battlefield, how to set it up, how to clear every different type of malfunction. They have competitions on how to disassemble and reassemble it and run a functions check completely blindfolded. And
yeah,
John
we do
wins
that
those
too.
competitions
I think
every
everyone still
single
does
time.
that.
After finishing his training, John gets shipped out to the Philippines, and he spends the next 3 years there between 1934 and 1937, and it kind of fucking sucks the entire time. Now, at this point in time, the geopolitical climate is absolutely heating up, and war could break out, and if that war breaks out, John is obviously here to defend the Philippines. And as far as John can tell, if war should break out, the army's only plan is to have all of its troops retreat to a tiny island called Corregidor and try to hold
Corregidor.
Now, this is extremely disheartening to the
I've never heard of that place. Hold on.
island called Corregidor.
I've never heard of this place. It literally just looks like a fucking airstrip and like not much else. Damn. Yeah, that would fucking suck to defend. I mean, defendable to an extent, but depending on what you have, of course, available to you support weapon wise, like you might be fucked.
And try to hold that. Now, this is extremely disheartening to the point that it pisses John off because remember, he's here
just
to be
running
a warrior.
away.
That's his higher calling in life. And now he's over here in the Philippines. It's hot. Everything's fucking wet all the time. There's fucking bugs everywhere. He's getting malaria. Everybody else is getting malaria. And he's sitting
I had no
there
idea it was
just
in the Philippines
suffering,
either.
basically waiting for war to break out. And then when the war does break out, the first thing they're going to do is retreat. That's not what he signed up for. So this bothers John all the way down to his core the entire time that he's there. Despite that, he tries to make the best of it, which is really hard at times because it's very clear to John that the army either doesn't give a fuck about him or just doesn't have the funding to take care of him the right way because they have basically nothing while they're there. They're living in these tiny little huts.
Both.
They have very little supplies.
Allegedly.
They're literally having to eat goat half the time, which John said was absolutely disgusting. And on top of that, John absolutely hates the rainy season in the tropics because he cannot stand the wool army socks when they get wet on his feet. It drives him absolutely insane. It bothers him so much that it becomes a well-known thing in his unit that when you're gambling against John Basilone, he is willing to accept dry cotton socks as currency to gamble with.
Holy shit.
Against him. Which is pretty much all he does the entire time that he's there. He's either sleeping, drinking, gambling, or trying to bang the locals like everybody else. He actually ends up falling in love with a local woman by the name of Lolita that he describes as the most beautiful woman in the world. So much so that he actually gets her name tattooed on him. The constant drinking and gambling gets old after a little while, so he decides that he's going to start training to box again. So he gets back to running, jumping rope, starts sparring with any other army guy that's willing to spar with him, and then eventually he ends up taking his first fight in the army for boxing. Takes his first match, goes in there, knocks the guy out in the first round, takes another match, knocks him out too. After a little while, he is the best boxer in his unit, and then he goes and competes, becomes the best boxer in the army, and then he goes, competes again, knocking out the Navy's champion, becoming the best boxer in the U.S. military. Around this point in time, he ends up getting the nickname Manila John, and all the promoters.
Manila John is crazy.
Badass over in the Philippines, knocking everybody out. So he's getting letters from all these boxing promoters wanting him to come over and fight their pro champion over here, this pro guy over there. Basically, he's got a really good professional boxing career lined up the minute he goes back home. Eventually, he ends up beating.
And like, I mean, for the time, you're not making like a crazy amount, but you're making good money still. And for a professional boxer, if you know, you want to get your name out there, that's a good way to do it, you know, for sure at this time. Yeah, that's sick. I had no idea he was a professional boxer, and you know, eventually worked his way up through the ranks. You know, a lot of I think most militaries have like different sports leagues, you know, whether it be boxing, baseball, hockey, you know what I mean? There's all different ones, right? He worked his way up, best in the military, and then, fighting civilian wise. That's crazy, man. And Manila John is such a good fucking call name. That's awesome.
A really good professional boxing career lined up the minute he goes back home. Eventually, he ends up beating everybody in the United States military. 19 wins, 19 knockouts, at which point
stationed in Manila, of course,
go back home and turn pro, or he can go up a weight class.
Rolls off the tongue nicely.
Do either, and his enlistment is coming to an end. John decides that he does not want to go up a weight class. He definitely does not want to re-enlist in the army because he's past 3 years of fucking sucked. And he doesn't want to go back home and become a pro boxer because he doesn't think that that's the warrior calling that he had from his vision. So John finishes up his enlistment in 1937 and goes back home and moves in with mom and dad all over again. And he is right back at square one, not knowing what to do with the rest of his life. He goes right back to being a caddy at the golf course. And at this point, mom and dad...
So that's likely why I didn't know that he enlisted early, because he got out, I guess, right? And maybe that early stage over in the Philippines it's not really talked about much, I suppose. At least I had no knowledge of it, right? So, damn, okay, wow. So, and then I guess he re-enlists, and I'm assuming has to retrain, or does he re-enlist with the Marines? I'm not too sure. I don't want to misspeak. Let's watch.
Do with the rest of his life. He goes right back to being a caddy at the golf course, and at this point, mom and dad are getting worried because, I mean, he's a 21-year-old man, and this is the 1930s. He should be having kids by now, and he's over here working some part-time high schooler job. He needs to go and get a real job and make something of himself and start building a family. And while nobody's saying it out loud, John feels that constant pressure both from his family and his community, and he just doesn't know what to do. So he basically just goes back to what he was doing in the Philippines, right? He's carrying golf clubs during the day, he's gambling, he's drinking, and he is fucking everything that moves. You gotta realize, he's the 21-year-old Army veteran that just got back from the military. He's 185 pounds, built like a brick shithouse with 19 knockouts. He's seen as a very eligible bachelor by all the young ladies in town. So he's doing stuff with them. He's even banging the old widow that runs the flower shop down the street. I'm not kidding. So that's
Can't
going on
judge
for
a
a
man.
while. Then eventually his
I get
dad confronts him like, Johnny, what the fuck are you doing with your life? You need to get your shit together. So John is like,
oh, come on, Pops.
I know. I know. So he goes, he gets a real job. He ends up being a delivery guy for a laundry service. He does that for a couple of months. Fucking hates every single second of it. But now mom and dad are proud of him. You know, he's gone out in the world. He's got a real job. He's doing the whole, you know, family thing. Soon he'll probably get a wife, settle down, have kids, do what, you know, you're supposed to do. He doesn't make it there very long. He ends up quitting because he just can't stand to do it. His parents are super disappointed right out of the gate, at which point John is like, you know, I'm going to move out. I'm going to go somewhere else. I'll go out on my own. So he moves to a different state, gets a job with the gas company. So he does that for like...
I wonder too, like, I'm sure army pay back in the day wasn't great, but if he was in for a few years, right, like he surely has to have had some money saved up, right? Unless maybe the gambling, right, the constant gambling, maybe he just gambles all of his money away, unfortunately. Maybe that's his biggest vice, you know. Obviously womanizing is one thing, but gambling all your money away, oof, nobody wants that. You know, how are you going to get all the women if you have no money?
Else, I'll go out on my own. So he moves to a different state, gets a job with the gas company. So he does that for like 6 months. He becomes one of the top employees at the company. He's
Everyone knows that.
Fine. He does the work really well, but he absolutely hates it. He doesn't feel like he's fulfilling his higher calling. And around this point in time, all the news is coming out about the massacre at Nanjing, Japan invading China, killing hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians. There's stories coming out about Japanese officers beheading innocent Chinese civilians until their arms are so fatigued that they can no longer lift up their swords. And this bothers John to his core, because even though his time in the army wasn't great and he hated it the entire time, he still considered himself a professional and did not understand why another professional military would do that to innocent civilians.
Yeah.
And with this, John has...
And of course, the professional military, in quotation marks there, for Japan at the time, right? Very barbaric, you know, even by like then standards, like those days standards, right? Very fucking barbaric, the practices that were taking place there. Japanese culture at the time, again, it allowed for some very, very gruesome shit, which any civilized nation at the time was obviously fucking frowning upon hard.
Why another professional military would do that to innocent civilians.
Obviously the
and
worst.
With this, John has his second vision, basically a more clear version of his first vision.
Or Nanjing,
he is
I
supposed
guess.
to be a warrior, but he is supposed to fight the Japanese. And with this, he decides that he's going to re-enlist in the United States military, but this time he's not going with the army. He told his mother, and I quote, "The army's too soft, Ma. I'm going with the Marines."
Yeah, okay, so he was army, now he's Marines.
So in July of 1940, at the age of 23, John Basilone joins the United States Marine Corps. And you gotta realize, at this point in time, John is 23 years old and there's a draft going on, so pretty much everybody else that he's going through training with is some 18-year-old snot-nosed kid. And John is just He's getting through it. So he crushes basic training, goes off to machine gunner school for the Marine Corps, and while he's there, he just starts hustling all of his classmates. He sits there and very loudly and very vocally expresses frustration in his inability to disassemble and reassemble the machine gun, which obviously he knows how to do extremely proficiently, but he plays it off like he can't. And then he suckers other young cocky Marines in to a challenge of assembling and disassembling it and running a functions check, and whoever wins money. And then as soon as they put money on the table,
he's a gambler at heart, man.
Shit, including the socks.
Crazy. Thanks.
4 in a row. You know something? This is like the luck of the Irish, only I'm not Irish, so you figure it out.
So he gets done.
That's awesome. Yeah, we actually, in our regiment, well, we had 2 guys that were kind of like, I guess more vetted, I suppose you could say, than everyone else, right? Rest of us, you know, like 17, 18-year-olds, right? Or 19, right? Early 20s. But we had 2 fellas that were, you know, one guy was 40, I think. And he was actually a cop in his civvy life. You know, of course, we were reservists. So we were going away for, at this point, 2 months. We were doing our DP1 training. So, you know, he was a cop civvy life and he was out there. So he wasn't used to, like, I guess, like the army lifestyle, you know what I mean, per se, right? Or like, I guess, like, obviously the weapon systems we were using, but he was definitely a lot more calm under situations. And he was kind of like, I guess you could say, the group dad, you know, in a way. You know, he wasn't, you know, a senior to us at all, had no rank over us, but he was kind of, you know, still go to him for guidance and shit, and you could still talk to him, you know, in a chill way. Very good guy, and it definitely pays to have people like that. Now, obviously, in John's case, he's just fucking with these guys because he knows it all, right? And I've heard stories too of, like, and even in Canada, right? I think if you're out for 4 years, you have to redo your training and all that. Now, you're eligible for potential promotion earlier, I believe, but you have to redo all your training and everything. So that's essentially what this guy's doing. He's doing his BMQ essentially all over, his DP1 training all over again, right? Fucking annoying, but, you know, to be with all the recruits again as if you know nothing, but I can see why. It's still necessary.
You know something? This is like the luck of the Irish, only I'm not Irish, so you figure it out.
So he gets done with training. He's older. He's more mature. He already knows everything. Very quickly, he ends up becoming a gunnery sergeant. He's in charge of 11 other men and 2 machine guns. And he takes being a leader very seriously. He makes all the men in his section train and retrain over and over and over again with the machine gun, how to set them up.
Yeah, you've already been in for 3 years.
Absolutely everything.
Most experienced.
They are
You're just
just
men.
as good as
Lead
he
them.
is. Then they end up getting shipped out to Puerto Rico for amphibious landing training. He's back in the tropics. Absolutely hates it. Everything's wet. His feet are wet. His socks are wet. There's fucking bugs everywhere. He doesn't like it there. He ends up training there for an entire year. And as per usual, when he's not training, they're going out, they're gambling, they're drinking, and they're fucking everything that moves. At this point in time, he becomes kind of infamous for every time he gets hammered, he turns his hat, also known as a piss cutter, sideways to let everybody know, hey, I'm fucking hammered. So after a year, they get done with training. They're just waiting on orders on where they're going to go.
They're just chill with it.
Apparently full. So according to the rumors, the U.S. military has went out and built an entire new base for the Marines. And this base is fucking awesome. There's a new movie theater. There's an athletic facility. There's a new chow hall that serves steak and lobster and cake and ice cream every single day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
That's
Everybody
sick.
is fucking pumped because they've been hanging out in the tropics where it sucks, basically living in tents. And now they're finally going to go and get appreciated for the elite fighting unit that they are. So they get shipped out, they travel, they make it all the way to New River, North Carolina, where the new base is, and they get there. There's nothing there. There's like a couple of buildings for the officers, and then it's just a fucking swamp. They have no mission. There's no training schedule. They're literally just existing, living in tents in a swamp. Because at this point in time, America isn't in the war yet. So basically, they're one of the most highly trained units that America has, but they have nowhere for them to go. So they basically just like set them off to the side and told them to go camp in a swamp for a while, and it sucks the entire time. So they're there for a couple months.
Why not just send them somewhere like
going to
better
a
at
different
least?
new base, and this base surely is the base they were originally talking about, right? With the chow hall and the steak and the lobster and the cake and the ice cream and the athletic facility and the new barracks. Everything's going to be awesome. The new base is actually ready. They ship out. It's a very short drive. They come to this new place, Camp Lejeune. Also, no buildings, just a fucking swamp.
Wow.
Very.
Sick car. Woo.
So now morale amongst the men is at an all-time low. It absolutely sucks. John is trying to do everything he can to keep spirits up. He makes it standard practice that everybody under his command is going to learn boxing. He's going out, he's teaching his men how to box. The circus in town actually donates their old tent and they set it up, and that becomes their new like Madison Square Garden. He's hosting fights.
That's sick.
Boxing is like the only thing they have. But John doesn't really have any interest in boxing.
And also applicable, obviously, to what will eventually happen, you know, unfortunately to say, right? But, you know, hand-to-hand fighting is definitely a lot more possible, I guess, in the jungle, in closer environments like that, right? And especially in night fighting scenarios where you cannot see the enemy, and in that dense jungle, right? You literally, enemies are popping forward 5-10 feet in front of you, and it's like, fuck, you know, you're just rushing them before someone can raise their gun, you know? Scary shit, but it definitely, boxing, I think, helped a lot of these soldiers through the war, I think.
He's hosting fights. Boxing is like the only thing they have. But John doesn't really have any interest in boxing himself, and after the word got out that he's Manila John with 19 knockouts, not a lot of people wanted to box him anyway.
No,
so it works out.
I doubt
there
it.
has been several occasions where a card game went wrong and he got into a fight and knocked a couple of people out. And then they get a new commander that apparently is a badass, and one of the first things this commander does is calls John Basilone into his office. Okay, this cannot be good.
Stop being an insubordinate, or maybe
hard ass.
He's either going to be stop being an insubordinate, or he's going to be fucking, you know what? You're badass. You're chill. I know about you. Do what you want, dog. I know you'll be ready for it. One of the two, because that's just the time period, right? You could have either or. They may reprimand you, or you might just have the chill as fuck, like, officer.
John Basilone into his office. Okay, this cannot be good. John is nervous. This guy is allegedly a hard ass. He's supposedly one of the most decorated men in the U.S. military at this point.
Gambling,
He's got 2 Navy
drunkenness,
crosses. He's already
fighting.
served in Nicaragua. He served in the Banana Wars, and now John has to go talk to him, and he doesn't know why. So John walks into his office, and this guy is intimidating. He is built like a brick shithouse. He looks like a refrigerator with a smaller refrigerator on top of it, and that's his head. This dude's got
Holy
the biggest
shit.
barrel chest he's ever seen. His side profile is 2 feet thick. It's starting to make sense why this guy's nickname was Chesty. Yeah, John's new commander
Oh my God.
is the legendary Marine Chesty Puller. And
Wow.
Chesty lays into him immediately. Like, I understand you knocked some people out after a card game. And he's like, yes, sir. And he goes, I understand you're some type of knockout artist. And he's like, yes, sir. I was 19-0 over in the Philippines when I was in the Army. Chesty at this point flips out. The Army? You were in the fucking Army?
You're getting soft, brother.
Now, obviously, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but this conversation went something along the lines of, why don't you explain to me why I would let somebody softened by the United States Army lead my Marines into combat? I have heard
Softened
nothing but
is
bad
crazy.
things about you, John. You are a gambling womanizer that would sleep with 2 women at a time if you could afford it. At which point, John responds,
Oh,
and I
who
quote,
wouldn't?
even when I can't afford it, sir. At which point, Chesty cracks a smile and says, God damn it, you're going to make a fine Marine. Pull up a seat. They have a cigar together.
That's
and start
fucking
drinking.
awesome.
And then Chesty has John tell him all about the Philippines.
Oh
Yeah,
my
John
God. Dude, the fucking Marines. Of course, that's fine. Yeah, that's awesome. He's testing him, right? Tests him. Yeah, you're everything I thought you were. Okay, sick. Sit down. You're chill. You know what I mean? Yeah, okay. Wow. Holy fuck, dude. That's awesome. And what a fucking comeback.
together and start drinking, and then Chesty has John tell him all about the Philippines. Yeah, John Basilone is now homies with the most decorated Marine of all time.
That's sick. Wow.
Shortly after
Guadalcanal.
this,
Okay,
Japan
shit's getting
attacks
real.
Pearl Harbor. They've committed the cardinal sin. They've fucked with America's boats. It is now game on. At this point in time, John's unit is one of the most highly trained units in the United States military, and they are immediately shipped out to Samoa on their way to the Pacific for more training. They spend about 4 months there. They train a bunch on amphibious landings, but they also train on jungle warfare, trying to focus in on what they know the Japanese like to do. They know that the Japanese like night fighting, so they get a bunch of nighttime combat training, and then they know that the Japanese also like to infiltrate behind enemy lines and pretend to be one of your guys and then murder you in your sleep. So
Yeah.
they develop a new system on how to make sure that somebody out in the darkness is actually one of your guys. Now, the tricky part is you need to make sure that both members in this communication are both on the same page and they both know that they're not going towards an enemy. So you're going to shout out one word and they're going to
Vocalize.
respond back with another word that's the password. And the
Yeah.
words that they choose are weather and clear, because apparently you can't say those words with a Japanese accent.
Yeah.
Clear, 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 clear.
They get done
Fucking
training,
literally.
then they just
Yeah, no, we do the exact same thing here in Canada. Yeah, it's the same passcode systems. Not like we changed it up, obviously. You know what I mean? But yeah, same type of idea. When you're entering a camp at night, an OP at night, whatever have you, right? There will be a passcode, passphrase, and you will reply. So like Thunder Flash, you know what I mean? Like literally the most basic fucking one there is. Everyone knows that, right? But that's the gist of it. And in this case, right? Obviously, with a Japanese accent, they can't pronounce their R's, right? Unfortunately, it's just the way it is, right? So they're using kind of their, it's a stereotype, but it's a true stereotype, to be fair. So they're using that to their advantage in this case, and it's very smart because they're using words that a Japanese person that is not English trained, English fluent, they can't fucking say that word. They literally cannot fucking say that word. So it's very smart.
They get done training, then they're just told to board a ship. They're not even telling them where they're going. They get out to sea after like 2 days once it's no longer a security issue, and they tell everybody over the loudspeakers, we're headed to Guadalcanal in the Pacific. There's an airfield there that we have to take.
Henderson, yeah.
Now, John is going to kind of be in the second wave. He is not there when the Marines make their first landing on Guadalcanal on August 7th, 1942. Now, those Marines experience very little resistance at first, and then 2 days later on August 9th, the Japanese Navy rolls in on the naval detachment that had dropped off the Marines, and they attack them at night and catch them completely off guard, and they end up sinking 4 American cruisers, and the entire naval detachment is forced to retreat, stranding the Marines on Guadalcanal. So for about that first week, the Japanese Navy just shells the Marines with naval gunfire and then tries to starve them out. The first major battle is on August 20th.
Yeah, I believe, and obviously when the naval fleet had to pull out there, that's all their supplies gone, right? That's all their food, all their ammunition, all their fucking just auxiliary shit to live. You know what I mean? Shaving cream, shit tickets, fucking everything, right? Is gone, you know? So that's rough living, and now you're just in a fucking jungle stranded, you know? Rough, man, rough. And you're just waiting for the Japanese to come. That's shitty. It's a shitty environment.
He just shells the Marines with naval gunfire and then tries to starve them out. The first major battle is on August 20th at the Tenaru River when 800 Marines go toe-to-toe with 900 Japanese, killing 800 Japanese and only losing 44 Marines in return. After this, the Japanese realize 2 things. A, they're going to have to up their game if they want to go toe-to-toe with the Marines. And B, Henderson Airfield is apparently very important to the United States war effort, and they have to take it back no matter what. Henderson Airfield has a ridge right next to it today that's known as Edson's Ridge because it was defended on September 12th by Edson's Raiders. Edson's Raiders is comprised of 840 Marines that go toe-to-toe with 3,000 Japanese soldiers led into battle by Major General Kiyotake Kawaguchi. Utilizing the high ground and effective machine gun fire, Edson's Raiders absolutely crushed Kawaguchi's men. Over the course of 3 days, the Marines lost 31 men and killed over 600 Japanese soldiers and wounded at least 600 more. To the Japanese, this was considered the first major defeat of their ground forces in over 2,000 years and brought immeasurable shame to that chain of command. General Kawaguchi is immediately relieved of command, and his boss, General Hayotake, takes control, and it becomes his life's mission to win back Henderson Airfield to restore his honor. By August 18th, the United States Navy is able to punch through, and John and the rest of the 7th Marines show up to reinforce the Marines on Guadalcanal. Over the course of the coming days, they offload all of the 7th Marines onto Guadalcanal, but on September 23rd, before all of the Marines have disembarked from their ships, they get ambushed at the Medicao River. Chesty Puller, hearing that some of his men are cut off and surrounded, commandeers the United States naval destroyer, the USS Ballard, takes it under his command, gets it as close as he can to their position, and calls in the naval gunfire on the enemy himself. He then loads up all the landing vessels that he has with as many Marines as he possibly can and begins leading them into the fight to save his men. And
that's crazy, man. I obviously, you know, when you're talking about naval combat, right? Your close range is like fucking 10 kilometers away. You know, that's fucking like point blank for a fucking battle cruiser. So I'd be interested to know just how fucking close he got this motherfucker. You know what I mean? Like, that'd be crazy. But also too, I have to say about the Japanese forces on the ground there, right? When you're talking about just how high their casualty rate is, most of those are deaths. Those are not injuries in this case. When you're talking about Japanese forces, most did not surrender. Most were doing suicide charges into the American lines. And the unfortunate part is too, unfortunate, I guess you could say this, right? I guess culturally, indoctrination wise, right? They would do suicide charges up to the last man. So even if the command regiment at the fucking rear line, no one is left, you have pushed all your men up, they're all fucking dead. the command regiment is now going to push forward as well. And that's just an honor-based thing that they fucking do. It's crazy shit. Or if it fails, then typically that regiment commander or whatever have you is going to commit seppuku and, you know, kill himself afterwards, right? Radical, completely radical mindset, right? But that's just what they did. And so again, when you're talking about the casualty count, yeah, because they're used to fighting the Chinese where they could pull off these types of tactics. The Chinese do not have support weaponry. They do not have rifles in general for the most part, right? They got pitchforks, you know, like literally peasants is what you're fighting. And so the Japanese army, yeah, at that point could just roll through them, could just intimidate them, could do a massive bonsai charge and would succeed. When you're fighting a well, you know, put together, westernized, trained, disciplined military, those tactics fucking fall apart like that. It doesn't work. It doesn't fucking work with support equipment, right? Machine guns, mortars, whatever have you, right? Doesn't fucking work at all. Does not work.
Many Marines as he possibly can and begins leading them into the fight to save his men. And Chesty is right there leading from the very first Higgins boat, and it gets so bad from enemy gunfire coming in.
Chesty's going in, wow.
The naval coxswain, the pilot of the ship, goes and starts turning the boat around, and all the other boats are going to start following, at which point Chesty orders him to keep going, and he fights him on it, and Chesty pulls out his Colt 45
Holy
and says
shit.
that he will shoot him himself if he doesn't steer that fucking boat
fucking deserter.
to that beach.
Holy
Chesty
shit.
lands, goes out, saves his men, and to be clear, John wasn't there during the actual battle, but he saw all of this unfold. He heard about it, and it reinforced everything that he thought and knew in his heart, that if he wanted to be a good leader, he had to lead from the front and be willing to risk himself for his men. So all the Marines get out on Guadalcanal. The biggest objective in the war right now is defending Henderson Airfield. This is the most important stretch of land on the planet at this point in time. So John and his 11 men are set up on this ridge right outside Henderson Airfield. They have 2 foxholes, 1 machine gun team in each, and they are covering a 2,500 yard span of the Marine front line, and they absolutely cannot allow the Japanese to get past it. On October 23rd, General Hayotake, who remember feels that he has been shamed by allowing his
dishonored
to lose to the Americans.
It's a personal attack to lose, like quite literally.
To die to win this fight, and he sends all the men that he has directly towards the Marine Corps' front line. And
suicidal charges
directly towards John Basilone and his 11 men. The Japanese soldiers headed towards John and his men were covered in leaves for camouflage, and there were so many of them that Basilone's men said it looked like the jungle itself was coming to eat them. And while that is horrifying, you have to remember that John and his men have 2 heavy machine guns with overlapping fields of fire and the high ground. It's going to take a literal army to uproot John and his men. John and his men start mowing down wave after wave of Japanese infantry, and they just keep coming because they are under the command of General Hayotake, and this man is willing to die.
It's an honor charge. Like it's disgusting. It's a disgusting mentality.
Not only are John and his men metaphorically stacking bodies,
it's a
they're
waste.
literally stacking bodies.
Because you got to think too, with this many men, that they should have. And this is no disrespect to the Marines, but statistically speaking, numerically, and with the equipment advantage, they should have fucking won this. The Japanese should have had this easily, if they weren't just acting under just a joke of a command. And also the command structure too, on the section level, right? You have to remember to instill to instill ultimate confidence in the leadership and the representatives of the emperor, right? Your section leader, you had 1 section leader and no one was trained to be a section leader beyond him, I believe, right? So if he died, you literally just had 7 privates fucking running around like a chicken with their head cut off. You know what I mean? It doesn't work. You know what I mean? So you just have basically at that point no leadership. The second a section leader dies, he can't communicate with the platoon leader. You're fucked, right? It's just instant breakdown. Bayonet charge them. Because everyone else doesn't fucking work.
All of his men as well. Not only are John and his men
surrounded them,
stacking
prolonged
bodies,
fought.
they're literally stacking bodies to the point that it actually becomes a legitimate problem. John has to get out of the foxhole and push over piles of dead corpses.
I heard about
because
this.
They're beginning to obstruct the view from his machine gun positions. They fight for hours, mowing down wave after wave of enemy, and by the end of the first day, John has lost 4 men and killed who knows how many Japanese in return. On the second day, they still weren't able to get past Basilone and his men, but they were able to punch through the Marine Corps line on John's right flank, and they surrounded John and his men. Okay, so at this point, on one hand, this is a horrible situation to be in, but on the other hand, this is exactly the type of shit Marines are into. Okay, this is what they call a target-rich environment, and now that they're surrounded, the enemy doesn't have anywhere else to go but to fight them. This is exactly what they want. The only problem now is that the rest of the force is cut off from him, so he can't get any more ammunition or water for the guns, and to make things worse, he's been fighting for so long, his fucking wool socks are wet. So at this point, John's like, fuck it, I'm gonna go get the ammo myself. He takes off his boots, he takes off his wet wool wool socks, grabs a machete and his Colt 45 1911 and takes off through enemy lines to go get more ammunition and water for his men. John not only makes it through the enemy lines barefoot, he actually gets more ammo, more barrels, and more water for the guns and makes it back to his men. And over the course of the next day, he does this 2 more times. John and his men continuing to fight the entire time, mowing down scores of enemy soldiers. But slowly, John starts losing more and more men. First it was 4, and then 2 more, and then he's lost 8 men, and then suddenly it was down to John and just 2 others. At this point, they had to improvise new tactics. They didn't have enough men to man 2 heavy machine guns. So John became the gunner, trying to make every single last round count. And then when John ran out of ammo on one gun, he would hop over to the other gun while his 2 men reloaded and refitted that initial gun, and they would just bounce back and forth fighting as long as they possibly could. This goes on for hours, and John and his men can't keep up. John would burn through all the ammunition in one machine gun before the next gun was ready. So John had to engage the enemy in hand-to-hand combat at their foxhole to buy his men more time to get the guns up. And then that goes on for hours. John Basilone kills 38 enemy soldiers at or in his foxhole in close quarters combat, buying his men more time. And just as things are starting to
excuse me, but I want to say that's 38 men, like, visually that they fucking saw in and around the foxhole. That's not counting the 100-meter radius, 200-meter radius, whatever have you, in the forest, in the fucking little bit of open ground that they can see, where there's just fucking bodies everywhere, right? Like, these machine guns absolutely carried this fight. So it's really truly impossible to know just how many, like, kills he had on that day, but can only interpret that it was fucking a lot of them, like a lot, like 38 seen confirmed, the rest open for interpretation, but a good probably, like, you know what I mean?
In his foxhole in close quarters combat, buying his men more time. And just as things are starting to look really, really dark, like this is going to be the end, dark, we're almost out of ammunition, we can't keep doing this,
they run out of
Chesty
men.
Puller comes through again, rallies the Marines, pushes back the Japanese forces, and restores the initial line.
Yeah.
Over the course of the entire battle,
The Japanese have lost all their men over 2 days of fighting.
Managed to kill 2,500 Japanese soldiers, forcing them into a retreat. General Hastati again had been defeated, and this time the blame laid squarely on his shoulders, and because of this, he commits... Can't say that word on YouTube. Anyways, by the time reinforcements get to Basilone and his men, there is dead dudes absolutely everywhere. There's 38 of them in or around the foxhole. All of those kills were credited to Basilone in close quarters combat, and his fields of fire look like the most aerodynamic mass grave you've ever seen. There was so many they quit counting after 150. For the next 18 days, the Marines launched counterattacks, chasing the retreating Japanese forces all over Guadalcanal before eventually kicking them off the island altogether. But the fight's not over yet. The Japanese are going to come back, and they're going to come back with everything they absolutely have. Off the coast of Guadalcanal is a bunch of Japanese battleships, and they are there to secure a route for more Japanese soldiers to make it onto the beach through landing craft. But this time, the U.S. Navy is going to surprise them in the middle of the night. There's this crazy battleship commander by the name of Willis Lee, a.k.a. Ching Lee, a 5-time Olympic gold medalist sharpshooter and tactical genius that has just pioneered and perfected the method of using radar to find targets for naval gunfire, giving them an unprecedented advantage at night fighting. On the night of November 14th, he engages the Japanese battleship detachment with his ship, the USS Washington, sinking their flagship, the IJN Kirishima. This forces the rest of the Japanese naval detachment to retreat, squashing any hope of Japanese reinforcements hitting the beach.
2,000, 3,000 hands on board.
The entire tide
Crazy.
of the war in the Pacific. By January 1st, 1943, John and the rest of the 7th Marines were sent to Melbourne, Australia to recover from months of intense combat. And once the Marines get there, it turns into one gigantic party, because now the people of Australia have been living under the worry that the Japanese were going to invade them next. And now they're tucking their tail and they're running from the Marine Corps and the United States Navy. The Marines are heroes to every single person in Australia. The Australians were so grateful to the Marines, it said that there wasn't a single bar or home in Australia that wasn't open to a United States Marine. And they couldn't pay for one of their own drinks even if they wanted to. For an entire month, John Basilone is wearing his piss cutter sideways, absolutely hammered. And then one day he wakes up at like noon, probably still half drunk, feels like he's been hit by a truck, and his arm is just absolutely on fire. So he sits up out of bed, he looks over at his arm is just all bandaged up, and he has no idea why or what happened. And he's like worried that he like did something stupid, he jumped off a roof, broke his arm, something happened. He doesn't really know. Regardless of what happened or how hurt he is, he can't really do anything about it, and he's starving and he can do something about that. So he doesn't even bother to look at his arm or see what's underneath that bandage. He just staggers out of the barracks and goes to the chow hall. So he's in the chow hall getting food, and another Marine comes up to him and is like, yeah, death or dishonor, right? And John Basilone's like, what? He goes, your tattoo that you got last night.
Oh, it's a tattoo?
Watching, cheering. And he's like, and he looks underneath the bandage, and he's now got a gigantic tattoo on his arm that says death or dishonor. Now at this point, John is like partially relieved.
It's pretty hard though, I'm not gonna lie.
But on the other hand, he's like, man, I got so hammered I got a tattoo and didn't even know it. Maybe I should tone it down just a little bit.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
By this point in time, the party's kind of dying down. The Marines go into this like recovery type mode. They're kind of like out in the woods, living in barracks and tents, and they're just kind of hanging out until they get more orders. So that's fine. That's great. That's wonderful. The only annoying thing that's really going on at this point in time is in Australia, there's this fucking bird that's got the most obnoxious call on the planet, and it's called a kookaburra.
Oh my God.
John and
sounds like a monkey.
Absolutely hate these birds because of how.
Why does he keep playing it?
The point that they start opening fire on the birds whenever they hear them, just to get them to shut the fuck up. At which point the chain of command is like, you guys need to stop. You can't keep shooting at these tiny birds with Browning machine guns, okay?
Brownings.
They kept doing it, and then whenever the chain of command asked what they were doing, they would say they thought they saw a Japanese spy just to get these birds to be quiet. This goes on for months, just hanging out in the woods, recovering, shooting at these annoying birds. And then by May, John finds out that he is going to be awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions on Guadalcanal. Initially, he is told that he's going to go back to the United States, and FDR himself is going to put the Medal of Honor around John's neck in front of his friends and family in his hometown. But John doesn't really feel like he deserves it, or he has feelings that there's other men that deserve it just as much as he does. He said, and I quote, I just happened to be there. Anyone would have done the same in my place. And because of this, he feels like that Medal of Honor doesn't just belong to him, it also belongs to his men. So he actually opted to have the Medal of Honor ceremony in Australia on May 21st with his men present. And at this point, the Marine Corps realizes they have a unique opportunity. They've got John Basilone, this young, good-looking,
that's where that famous picture comes from. I didn't know that.
Shithouse of a Marine that's got 19 knockouts in boxing and the Medal of Honor around his neck. And they ship him back home, and he's going to be doing war bond tours to raise money for the war. For the next month, John gets paraded around the United States with the goal of raising $15 billion in war bonds, and in less than 30 days, he raises $19 billion. And John Basilone hates absolutely every second of it. He did not want to leave his men, and he definitely does not want to get paraded around the United States giving talks and speeches. It reminds him of being in school, having to go up in front of the class, and he absolutely hates school. He just grits his teeth and bears through it, trying to do the right thing. And then eventually, after he raises all this money and the war bond tour is over, he asks to get shipped back out to rejoin his men. He is
yeah, and unfortunately, and it makes sense too, right? Like, again, people, and we saw with the Victoria Cross documentary we checked out too there, right? People who receive these high level awards, right? They just, you know, they're just people just like you and me, right? And that's how they see themselves, a lot of these guys, right? It's just like, you know, I was just doing my job. I was just positioned there. You know what I mean? Yeah, I made it through, but I was just doing what anyone else would have done there. You know what I mean? In a sense. And it's very humbling to hear that, but I still feel like these men obviously deserve the recognition, but I can absolutely understand where they're coming from with that sentiment. You know what I mean? With that thought process, it does make sense. It's almost like guilt in a way. Like, why am I getting awarded for doing this when everyone else essentially, to an extent, went through the same thing I did, right? You know, but he did do great work, and the line held because of him, right? If he died, or if he, you know, wasn't there, you know, if it was anyone else, you know, things might have been different, right? That's the thing, right? That's what I think that you should be telling yourself, to I guess make peace with it, right? As if it was anyone else, it might have gone differently, you know. It might not have happened that way. It's unfortunate, but it's true.
All this money and the war bond tour is over, he asked to get shipped back out to rejoin his men. He is immediately denied. He's far too valuable. They cannot have the news headlines reading that war hero, Medal of Honor recipient John Basilone dies in combat, so they make him a guard at a naval shipyard.
This is the worst.
This goes on for months and months, just John stuck inside of a guard shack, similar to that classroom that he hated as a child. and it's just eating away at him. He starts to become an alcoholic. It's just the loneliest he's ever been in his entire life, and he hates every single second of it. And then in November of 1944, he hears word that his old unit under the command of Chesty Puller is almost wiped out at the Battle of Peleliu. And this is the last straw for John Basilone. He's not going to sit in this guard shack anymore while his men are out there fighting and dying without him. He storms into General Vandergrift's office, the same man that pinned the Medal of Honor on his chest in Australia, and tells him the newspapers are going to read one of two things. They're going to read that you had to court-martial war hero John Basilone, or they're going to read that John Basilone is returning to the Pacific. You can pick which one. And then he says, and I quote, "How's it going to look if we retake Manila and Manila John isn't there? I'm staying with my boys. They need me."
Damn, dude. The final
Within
vision.
days, John is given orders to report to Camp Pendleton, where he is going to lead a machine gun platoon that's getting ready to ship out to the Pacific. But before that, he's given 3 days of leave to go back home to Raritan, New Jersey, and get his affairs in order. And while he is there, he has his third and final vision, and it is alarmingly clear to him that he is going to die in combat. Despite that, it doesn't even really faze him because he knows it's his destiny. He tells his brother that he had this vision. His brother doesn't quite believe him. He gets his affairs in order and he heads off to Camp Pendleton. While there, he meets Lena, a female Marine cook, falls in love with her, and they get married almost immediately, and they have 1 month together at Camp Pendleton.
Good
That's sad.
relations with the Wookiees I have.
After his month at Camp Pendleton with his new
What the
bride, he
fuck?
ships out to
You calling
Hawaii.
Australians
He's got 4
Wookiees?
months
That's
there to train
crazy.
his machine gun platoon to get ready for combat. While there,
fuck?
John does absolutely everything he can to get his men ready for combat. He shares everything he knows. He makes sure that they know that machine gun inside and out. When they do amphibious landings, if they're able to get that machine gun onto the beach up and running, he walks up and throws wet sand into the gun himself so that they get used to clearing malfunctions. After 4 months of training in Hawaii, they're told that they're shipping out and to board this ship, and they don't even tell them where they're going yet again. Same thing happens again. A couple days out at sea, they announce over the loudspeakers that they are going to be taking part in the invasion of Iwo Jima, which translates to Sulphur Island. This is going to be nothing like anything John has ever
Iwo
experienced,
Jima's a
or
mess.
any other Marine for that matter. The entire island is not covered in jungles like all the other ones. Iwo Jima is just straight volcanic ash that looks like this. The reason
Yeah.
they need this island is because it's the only island big enough and in the right place that they're going to be able to land the new B-24 bombers on top of, and those are going to be critical in winning the rest of the war. This invasion is going to be absolutely massive. It's the biggest amphibious invasion in United States Marine Corps history. Over 800 warships, 250,000 men, and 70,000 Marines. John and his men are going to be landing on Red Beach too, and as the first wave lands on Red Beach, nothing really happens. There's a little bit of enemy sniper fire here and there, but there
Yeah, the Japanese on Iwo Jima were fucking dug in hard. They had bunker systems all throughout the island. So a lot of the naval bombardment taking place didn't really affect them to the degree that they thought it did. And the orders, I think, from the Japanese commander on the island specifically were to hold fire for the most part until the Marines got 100, I think 200 meters off the beach, and then open fire. Pincer them all at once. They got no cover. They got no nothing. They're not close to the water's edge. And they wanted to inflict as many casualties at one point, at one time, right? Which, you know, obviously allowing that landing a little bit and then, you know, and then firing rather than firing instantly and giving away your positions, right? Because they knew the second they gave away their positions, they're just going to get shelled, right? By the fucking American Navy. So they wanted to wait as long as they could so that, and then obviously the American Navy, they're fearful of shelling these positions because now, you know, you got American troops right on top of them. What can you do?
nothing really happens. There's a little bit of enemy sniper fire here and there, but there wasn't artillery, there wasn't mortars. They weren't opening up on them with machine guns while they were in the Higgins boats. And as soon as they get on the beach, there's nothing there either. So the Marines just kind of lay down and get low, trying to not be an easy target for a sniper. And then the second wave lands, and then the third, and then John's on the beach with his men on Red Beach too. And he looks out and just sees clustered Marines laying along this beach on volcanic ash that you can't dig into. And he has the oh fuck moment, and he realizes what's about to happen. The Japanese absolutely have every square inch of this beach sighted in with mortars and artillery, and there's pill boxes and bunkhouses off in the distance that are probably concealed and you just can't see them yet. Chuck Tatum, one of John Basilone's men, was laying down at the time, and he said that everybody had this feeling of like maybe this is going to be an easy day. Maybe the Japanese got scared and they fled and retreated already out of the gate and we've already won. And then he hears John Basilone start screaming, get the fuck up and start moving up the beach or you're gonna die, as he literally starts kicking Marines in the ass and dragging them up by their collars and ordering them to push forward. And as soon as that happens, the Japanese open up with mortars, artillery, and the pillboxes unconceal themselves and start mowing down Marines with machine gun fire. There's nothing he can do about the mortars or artillery, but maybe John can do something about these pillboxes and the machine gun fire. There's one big Japanese bunkhouse up ahead that's mowing down Marines with its machine gun. John orders his men to get their machine guns up and start returning fire into the window holes of this bunkhouse. Once his men start laying down suppressing fire, hopefully keeping the Japanese from manning their guns effectively, John goes, he finds a demolition guy and a flamethrower, and he orders them to walk right up the machine gun's field of fire, right next to the bullets whizzing past him. It seems sketchy, but is literally the safest place to be right now. As soon as the demo man and the flamethrower almost make it to the window on the bunkhouse, John steps over his gunner, unhooks the machine gun from the tripod, grabs it by the handle around the barrel, effectively known as a Basilone bail after this, yells at his man to grab the ammunition, and starts running up the beach as the demo man throws a satchel charge into the window and the flamethrower starts hitting all the windows with his flamethrower. John runs all the way up the beach. He runs up the hill that this bunkhouse is built into, and once he gets to the top of the hill, while holding the gun in his hands, he mows down all the Japanese running out the backside of the bunkhouse. At the top of the hill, John can see the airfield they need to take off in the distance, so he gets his machine gunner set up, gets the men that he has set up in a defensive position, and goes back down the beach to get the rest of his men, just like his mentor Chesty Puller would. He makes it back to the base of the beach, he gets all of his men, and they start making their way up the beach to secure this position. And then suddenly, John and 5 of his men are hit with a mortar, killing all of them. John Basilone is credited with saving dozens, if not hundreds of Marines with his actions on the beach that day. For this,
and it's, just like that, you know what I mean? He dies in combat, right? Just a mortar shell, straight mortar shell. Right in between 5 guys, you know, kills all of them. But it just goes to show you just how fucked that day was. Iwo Jima was a mess, you know. I know the Marines took a lot of casualties there, like a lot of casualties, very, very high number comparatively to the rest of the Pacific campaign, just because of how well the Japanese were entrenched. And, you know, obviously credence to the Japanese commander where it's due. It was a good plan. You know, they were trying to inflict maximum casualties, and they did do just that. You know what I mean? It's unfortunate to say, but it's true, you know.
Saving dozens, if not hundreds of Marines with his actions on the beach that day. For this, he was nominated for a 2nd Medal of Honor, but by this point in time, it had become common practice to never award the Medal of Honor twice. So he was posthumously awarded a Navy Cross and a Purple Heart, becoming one of the most decorated Marines of all time. And many of the Marines that he saved that day would go on to take Iwo Jima and ultimately win World War II. And that is the story of John Basilone, Manila John, the greatest machine gunner to ever live. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is to buy some merch over at thefatelectrician.com. Whack bang out. I absolutely hate endings like that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it just goes to show you just how quickly it can happen in the heat of battle. Hold on, let's see here.
Sergeant, can you tell us something about how you happened to get this medal? You must have mowed them down.
Yes, sir. I was in a good outfit with good men. I just happened to be there, and any man would have done the same in my place.
Spoken just like a Marine. Can you tell us, Sergeant, something about how you happened to get this Congressional Medal of Honor?
Yes, sir. I was in a good outfit with good men. I just happened to be there, and anyone would have done the same in my place.
Spoken just like a Marine. Sergeant, where does your old man come from?
My father comes from Naples.
Yeah, you can definitely tell he really did not like giving speeches, and he wasn't one for it, right? The way he's answering there, it's clearly just a fucking, you know, it's a party line, for lack of a better word, right? Just the preconceived answers, right? He's not talking off the tongue. He's not, you know, and that's fine. You know, some people aren't like that. And again, it's the public attention of the time, right? And the way he actually personally views it, right? It's he doesn't see himself as special, and why should he be paraded around when his unit's still fighting, right? It weighs on you as a person. I can definitely understand that, but I thought this was a great story. Add a lot of context to a person that I've heard about, but again, I only really knew about the stipulations surrounding how he got his Medal of Honor. Obviously, I was wrong about how he got the Navy Cross at the end there, but you know, I learned a lot about the guy, and I think a very interesting story. Very unfortunate how he passed, and you know, and again, didn't get to see the end of the war. But yeah, I thought this was a great video by the Fat Electrician. Of course, if you guys enjoyed the reaction, hit that like button, subscribe for more content from me, and of course, leave recommendations down in the comments below what you guys want me to check out next, guys. I really appreciate that a lot. Big thank you, of course, to all of our members, all of our Hastati, our Triarii, our Principe, Dagenhart, and of course, our Prefects, Hobbit, Andrew, B. Coon, and Psychotic Duck. Yeah, I appreciate you guys. And yeah, without any further delay, guys, this has been Centurion, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace, guys.